When upgrading our vehicle's car audio system, it is critical to use high-quality speakers that can handle plenty of power while still playing music accurately. JL Audio's C5 lineup of speakers has long been known as a great solution in the mid to high-end category. But JL Audio has just added a big change to the C5 lineup that is going to make it an even better solution for upgrading speakers. I'm Mark, welcome to Car Audio Fabrication. JL Audio was cool enough to sponsor this video, and in this video I'm going to show you what that big change is. And for those of you that are new to this speaker line, I want to give you an in-depth unboxing and a product overview to understand what applications these speakers are perfect for and to better understand the engineering and technology built into these speakers. So let's kick things off with talking about the big change to the C5 lineup that is going to make these a very, very solid choice for upgrading the speakers in a vehicle. As you likely know, in today's modern vehicles, it is no longer common to just have one set of speakers up front and one set of speakers in the back. Modern vehicles, especially vehicles with stock premium system upgrades, often have far more speaker locations. As an example, if we were to look at one of the front doors in the Jeep Grand Cherokee that I did in the past here on my channel, those front doors would have one woofer, which was an odd shape, an oval shape, and one tweeter. But it gets even more complex than that. That vehicle also has one center channel mid-range speaker. The back doors in that vehicle did not have a tweeter location, but they did have an oval speaker location, and then even further back in the vehicle were two smaller mid-range satellite speakers on each side. Now herein lies the problem. Because of all those different speaker locations, if we did want to upgrade all the speakers in the vehicle, it really wouldn't make sense to be buying component pairs together. For instance, if I wanted to upgrade that center channel speaker in the front of the vehicle, I would have to buy a pair of speakers and just not use one of them. Another problem is sometimes in our more advanced installs, we might want to run our speakers active, which means each of these speakers is connected directly to an amplified channel, and the crossover is controlled by the DSP or amp itself. That means we'd be paying for a passive crossover that we might not need. So in order to solve these issues and to allow for far more flexible system design, JL Audio has now added a solution with their C5 lineup where each and every one of these component speakers can be purchased individually. So these 5 options here are the initial speakers that are part of this individually sold lineup. So there is a ton of flexibility here. Let's say we were doing a more simple install that we wanted to run active. We could have a 6.5 woofer and a tweeter in each front door. But maybe the 6.5-inch speakers don't fit in our front doors. No problem, we could swap in the 5.25. Or what if our front doors account for a 5x7 and we want to take advantage of that little bit more cone area? Then we can use that paired up instead. What if we want to go with a more advanced system with an active 3-way setup? Well, we could use these 3 speakers on each side, giving us a woofer, a mid-range, and a tweeter. Or like I kind of explained in the beginning of the video, if we were doing a vehicle with a ton of different speaker locations like the Grand Cherokee, I could have this combination in each of the front doors. I could have this for a center channel. I could have just one of these, the coaxial version of the C5 in the rear doors, and then I could use the mid-range for my rear satellite speakers in that back pillar. The other thing that's really cool here is these speakers are designed to work together in 3-way and 2-way configurations, as you can see here in JL Audio's data sheet for these speakers. So as an example, this is the 6.5-inch speaker. You can see that this is designed to be used with that 4-inch mid-range and the tweeter in a 3-way configuration, or they also show the specs for using it with just the woofer and tweeter in a 2-way configuration. If we change the page here, we can also see the performance with using the 5x7 as the woofer and then that 4-inch mid-range and tweeter, and then the same for the 2-way setup there. And we can also see how they recommend using the 5.25 in a 2-way setup along with the tweeter. It's pretty easy to understand that now having the ability to get each of these individually is very, very beneficial. So we know that the C5 lineup is a great choice for a flexible design of system, but what does each speaker look like and what comes with them? What technology and engineering is built into these that makes them special? Let's move all these out of the way and start with the 6.5. So this is the C5-650CW. So what that tells us in the model number is this is a 6.5-inch speaker, and CW stands for component woofer. If we open it on up here, we get information on registering along with a speaker grill. This speaker grill is able to be separated here so that you can access the mounting holes. And you can see that the grill also has this small little indent. This is for the JL Audio logo, and they don't apply it because depending on your orientation, that could change how you want that logo applied. As a side note, I'm going to be going a lot more into the details on this first speaker here because a lot of the technologies and features, as an example, this speaker grill, that kind of translates throughout the line. Along with the speaker inside the box is this little baggie. This baggie has mounting screws, crimp-on connections for the speaker wire, that little logo that I referenced for the grill, and if you think about it, it's nice also the fact that this is unattached because if we aren't using the speaker grills, we could use this elsewhere in the install. And they give us a rolled up strip here of butyl rubber. We can roll this out and use this to seal the gap between our speaker adapter and where we are mounting the speaker. So now we can take a look at the component woofer itself. Now the first thing to notice here is this is a die cast alloy basket, which means this basket is incredibly strong and it's not going to potentially vibrate. If we look at the packaging, we'll also notice that all of these are made in Germany, and that's because JL Audio has partnered up with Dr. Kurt Mueller. That partnership accounts for the technology behind the cone and the suspension. This is a polypropylene cone and a butyl rubber surround, and both of these materials are very well damped, which leads to a much more neutral and smooth, balanced sound. JL notes that this leads to an uncolored performance, which is ideal in this price range and category. Now the motor on all of these is DMA optimized, which is something that carries throughout the C5 line and is proprietary to JL Audio. When JL Audio's engineers are designing each of these speakers, they use finite element analysis modeling in order to address the speaker motor's linearity. You can read through JL's explanation on the site of how they use this technology to optimize the performance of the speaker, but basically what you need to know as a consumer is it boils down to this. JL Audio has a real engineering team designing these speakers, and they do real research and real product development to test several iterations of a product before they bring it to market. All this engineering and testing, of course, adds expense to the product, but it also leads to a much better finished product. When it comes to quality, high-end speakers, the engineering and design is absolutely essential for the performance. Another example of true engineering on these is these have JL Audio's patented elevated frame cooling. This isn't really something I can show you, so I'll pull up this little graphic here on screen. You can actually check out that patent online if you would like to, but basically what it does is it allows for better cooling for the speaker's voice coil with higher velocity air than traditional cooling techniques. The results of using this advanced technology are better thermal power handling and reduced compression effects. Spec-wise, JL Audio has a recommended amplifier power of 25 to 150 watts RMS. You can see all the dimensions here on screen for this that are in their spec sheet, but what I also really like about the specs that they're listing here is they give us the off-axis performance. Notice that if we use these in a three-way configuration and cross them around 300 Hz, we have a very nice linear response up to that point, even off-axis. What that tells us is we can create an awesome sounding system without being concerned of having the speakers facing directly at our listening position. What all that technology and design really boils down to is when these are properly installed, they create incredibly accurate mid-bass, a really solid component woofer. Next up in the line, we'll take a look at another component woofer. This is the C5-570, and what is unique about this is not a round speaker. You can see this is an oval. Much like before, we get the same accessories. The only difference on this one is there's no speaker grill, but they do still give us that speaker emblem. In lieu of a speaker grill, they do give us this spacer plate here. This is what that spacer looks like, and what's nice about having this is sometimes in an install you might need a little bit more magnet clearance behind the speaker so you can space it away from the mounting flange, but the other good reason to use something like this is the cutout in a door panel or in the rear deck. You usually want the speaker to be as close to that as possible without obviously hitting it when the speaker is at full excursion, but this allows you to get that slight amount more of spacing if need be. You'll notice that the tab ears on these have elongated slots, which allows for more mounting flexibility. If we look at the backside, again, that die-cast alloy basket, which is nice and strong, the same motor technologies and everything that I mentioned on the woofer built in. Same connection terminals here, positive and negative, of course, and then that polypropylene cone and that butyl rubber surround. These also have a recommended amplifier power of 25 to 150 watts RMS and have an awesome design bandwidth of 50 Hz up to 5 kHz, which means 50 Hz we can dig nice and deep for that great mid bass. Moving on, the final component woofer in the category here is the C5-525. This is a 5 1/4, much like the 6 1/2. Got a speaker grill, same accessories here in the bag, and then the speaker itself. Notice the design of the mounting tabs here. Rather than the speaker being a full circle, this is nice that they kind of cut in with the geometry. The advantage of that is you can squeeze this speaker into a smaller location than if this was completely round to that outer diameter. Again, polypropylene cone, butyl rubber surround, die-cast basket, same terminals. So again, all that same technology throughout the C5 lineup. Recommended amp power on these also 25 to 150 watts RMS. These are great for that tight location. Now, all of these drivers so far fall into the component woofer category. So if you're building a two-way active setup, you would likely be combining one of these with a tweeter in each of these different configurations. Now, what if you did want to do an active three-way setup? That means we need a mid-range speaker between the tweeter and the woofer, so that's going to bring in the next component that we're going to take a look at here, the C5-400 component mid-range. On the mid-range here, we do get a speaker grill, much like before. We can also pop this out just like the others. Inside, all of the same accessories with the fasteners, the connections for the wiring, that strip of rubber, and the logo. Here's the mid-range itself. Take this out of its protective packaging. You can see, of course, the mid-range, but they also give us, once again, one of these little spacer brackets. So taking a look at the mid-range speaker here, again, the Dr. Kurt Mueller cone and suspension going on right here. They've also got a stamped steel basket on this speaker, so a little bit different. You can see that the JL Audio logo is stamped into the sides. Speaker terminals on this one are mounted in this one location. You can see that it has this kind of tab ear design, and these are intentionally designed to be removable if need be. They are flexible so that you can bend them slightly if need be for an install. But I do want to note what's really nice, again, they've got the slotted holes, which allows a little bit of flexibility in mounting. But the other thing is this edge here is very close to the outside of the surround, so you can really squeeze these into a tight location and then just have those little extensions for the mounting. Taking a look at the backside here, again, similar motor technology, and I forgot to mention this on the other speakers, but if you look closely inside there, they've got a little foam plug that is meant to prevent foreign debris from going into here, into the voice coil, keeping it nice and clean and pristine, like brand new. Amp power of 25 to 150 watts RMS and a really nice linear response for bridging that gap in an active three-way configuration. If you guys remember the Toyota Supra that I did the fabrication for last year's SEMA, we use these in the front doors for the mid-range speaker. These have a really nice sound, again, very natural sounding, very easy to tune. The last speaker to take a look at in the lineup here is the C5-075CT, which is the component tweeter, 3/4 inch. Let's open it on up. A little bit different accessories on this one. On this one, we get two coarse thread type screws for mounting, but we also get this machine thread style screw that goes into this attachment point right here. I'll show you what that is in a second. And then there are the two speaker connections. Also inside the packaging here are some things for mounting the tweeter. This one I'll show you in a second. And then this here is for a surface mount. You can see it has a slight angle to it if we did want to give a little bit of an angle more towards the listening position. This is a capacitor. This is a protection capacitor that you would put in line on the speaker wires. And the reason for that is this would give you a crossover that is below your normal crossover point. This provides protection for the tweeter if you were to lose DSP settings, or if the crossover were to be set incorrectly, you're not going to potentially immediately blow the tweeter. If you guys want to learn more about why you should have a protection capacitor on your tweeter, I have a video on the channel. So here is the tweeter itself sitting in its little housing. We'll pull it out here. This is the flush mount housing. And what's cool about this housing is we can take this little piece here that we pulled out of the packaging earlier. We can snap it onto the sides of the tweeter, and you can see that this can kind of articulate. And the advantage of that, if we wire these through here, now when we push this into the housing, what it will do is it will maintain that angle. You can see there that we installed it in. If we didn't want an angle, we could pop it back out, set this so that it's nice and straight, push it straight in, and now we have a flush mount that is perfectly straight. Now this tweeter, of course, is very low profile. It doesn't have any mounting tabs for screws to go through around it, so how do we attach it? What you would do is before you mount the tweeter into the housing, you would push this screw through, and then you could put this on the inside of whatever mounting surface you are using. You are going to thread the two together. And you can imagine by looking at the side profile here, if you had drilled a hole for this to fit into a piece of sheet metal or a piece of plastic or something like that, that piece of plastic would be on this plane right here, and then as you tighten this bolt from inside here, it's going to move this that direction and tighten against the surface. If you were using the surface mount option, you would use the two fasteners here to go into your surface, and then the tweeter just press fits into that housing like this. As far as the design of this goes, this has a silk soft dome diaphragm. So what that means is it's light and fast moving, which is great for high frequency accuracy. This has a neodymium magnet with ferrofluid cooling and damping. Performance-wise, this has linear performance that you're going to use from 4 kilohertz on up. These were also used on that Supra build that I mentioned earlier. What I like about these is the performance is very non-fatiguing. It doesn't sound too shrill or distorted. Again, a very nice, even sound that you would expect in the mid to high-end category. Now, in regards to doing a listening test of these speakers here on YouTube, that's not really possible because whenever you're listening to a video, you are hearing the speakers that your video is actually playing through, and YouTube really compresses the audio signal. Luckily, though, I do have quite a bit of experience with this lineup. Notably, I used these in that Supra build that I mentioned earlier, and I also used the coaxial version of these on that Jetta build that I'm currently doing here on the channel. In both of those vehicles, the sound was very natural and uncolored, and I found that the off-axis performance worked really well. It was very easy to tune those systems to a nice linear response and match my target curve. So the next time you are picking out speakers for a car audio build and you need the flexibility of choosing multiple speaker sizes, along with the proven performance of JL Audio's speaker engineering and design, be sure to take a look at the C5 lineup, now available a la carte. To learn more about these, check out the links down in the video description. A special thanks to JL Audio for being a sponsor of this video. You can check out 2 of the other builds that I use the C5 lineup on here on screen. As always, my friends, thank you guys for watching.